What I love though is that the story shows us that this woman didn't just sit down and kept hoping that things will change, but she took action herself. I like to think of it that she took action not because she was afraid, but she took action in spite of her fear. Kingdom greetings. This is Dr. Alex. Grace and peace be yours in abundance. It is my pleasure to welcome you to our weekly extraordinary exploits on our online platforms. I believe that through these episodes, you will be challenged, you will be inspired, and you will be empowered to pursue your purpose, to make the difference you were born for, and to experience extraordinary living in your daily journey on earth. Well, if you forget everything I will ever say, I want you to remember that I truly love you. I want you to remember to make the rest of your life to be the best of your life. I need you to remember that the future is better than the past. Just say this with me. I am accredited for extraordinary living. Wow. Welcome. Let me just say this to you as I welcome you today. Every Wednesday evening, 18:30 Central African Time, we will be coming live with a new episode on all our online platforms. And every Tuesday morning at 5 a.m. Central African Time, we will be coming on this live on the platforms with our daily reflections. Be encouraged to join. Be encouraged to invite someone else. You know, we only have one shot at this thing called life. Let us make the best of it, and that is, let us make it an incredible life. Join us now as we get to do some work. I'm looking forward to you communicating with me as these episodes are building you up and transforming your life. Let us join the teaching. Our dominion strategy, our kingdom dominion strategy, we go further when we learn and practice management, or it will be frustrated when we neglect management. As a matter of fact, your business, let me speak a minute to business people. Your business owes its success in your ability to manage. My business, our businesses, your organization. Dr. Alex, why would this be so critical? Because that's the original function. I don't want to say this, but let me just say it. Did you know that the angels are doing a great job worshiping him in heaven than you and I can ever get close? I mean, you start to worship him after about 30 minutes, you're tired, you want to sit down. They worship him 24 hours, crying, holy, holy, holy is the Lord God Almighty, who was and is and is to come. You have created all things, and for your pleasure they are and were created. But think about this. The things that we think is really the thing in the kingdom, the angels are doing a great job. But there's something the angels cannot do. They cannot manage what belongs to him in the physical realm. They cannot manage that home that he allowed you to be, the father, the mother, that he allowed you to be a son or a daughter in it. They cannot manage that organization, whether it's business, whether it's a government organization, whether it's a church. The angels cannot do that because that's a responsibility that was given to the human. I strongly believe that a manager was God's central motivation for bringing the human more than every other religious activity. I know you will think I'm controversial. I'm not. I'm just enlarging your appreciation and your understanding. I pray that you will be inspired from within to ask the question, how is my management skill? As a matter of fact, hope you can look back and review your life and realize that the things that have developed and have grown in your life are the things that you have managed. The things that you have excelled, the areas in which you have excelled management are the areas that have greatly developed in your life. And if you can capture this, I believe we will be in a position to engage the rest of this series. In engaging the rest of the series, I didn't want to just say Genesis 1, Genesis 2. Management is a priority of the kingdom. But I wanted to just take you through a small journey of this book and do a couple of case studies. And in these couple of case studies, I want us to observe the management principle. So that next time you go back to your Bible, before you are arguing whether the story about intense religious activity, I want you to observe the principle of management. Let's do the first case study. I call this case study the timeless story of a journey from poverty to abundance. It's a story that has amazed me for many decades as a teacher of kingdom principles. It's a story that you visit and revisit, and it amazes you each time you revisit it. And I want us to visit, but this time around, from the perspective of management. And the story simply says, the wife of a man from the company of prophets cried out to Elisha. This is a story found in 2 Kings 4. She cried out and said, your servant, my husband, is dead. And you know that he feared the Lord. The word revered means he was a reverend, he was a prophet, man who feared the Lord. But now his creditor is coming to take my 2 boys as his slaves. I want us to explore that story a little bit today, because I want to show you the kingdom imperative of management. The situational analysis of the story for me goes something like this. This woman was married to a prophet, to a religious man. And we are made to understand that this religious man feared the Lord. In other words, in his religious role, whatever his organization defined as a religious role, in his religious role, he was very faithful as a religious man, feared the Lord. But what's strange about this story is that as much as he was deep in his religion, he was still poor. He was still poor. Was he poor because the God he serves is a God who lacks? And my answer is no. We serve a God of abundance. What made such a reverend man, such a great prophet, what made him poor? Let's expand it a little bit. It's also interesting that not only was he poor, but he was in the habit of taking loans. Now, the story tells us that the creditor was coming. The only way there is a creditor is because somebody has either gone out and looked for money and he can't pay back, or a service was offered on their behalf and they're not able to pay back. I think why I love this story, I've spoken to it many places. I can't forget, I was once in the DRC and with other speakers on that particular day. The Dr. Bill Winston was speaking just after I was speaking. So the young people, a lot of young people, business people, it was a business meeting. They asked me a question, Dr. Alex, what's wrong with Africa? Why are we struggling as Africans? And I took them to this story and I said, the black people are very religious. We're so religious. Man. And yet, so poor. Of course, I believe this will change. But we are a classical example of this man. He was reverent, feared God, and poor. Poor then that he takes loans. I mean, go to any African country. If there's countries in the world that takes loans, it's African countries. We take loans, sometimes abuse or misuse or whatever we call it. But let's leave politics. Let's talk about this principle. What I love, though, is that the story shows us that this woman didn't just sit down and kept hoping that things will change. But she took action herself. I like to think of it that she took action not because she was afraid, but she took action in spite of her fear. She took action to say, if I keep worrying, I will lose my future. But if I stand and do something about my situation, the future will change. She goes to the senior prophet, Elisha, who was the master of her husband. I don't want to go into all the story. I want to get into the case study as a management story. She receives what we call a prophetic word from Elisha. I like this. The prophetic word was based on what was available within her control. Elisha doesn't give a prophetic word, he's out in the moon, but he gives a prophetic word based on what she could do. I love that. One of the things that I pray as we think about people getting prophetic words, may God, if it's Him speaking through all the prophets, may give the prophets word that will be doable by the people. Her prophetic word is based on a jug of oil. The phraseology you in this jar, this one uses jar. It's just based on a jar of oil. All she has in the house, that's valuable in her perspective is just a jar of oil, something that size. And the word comes to inspire her to do something, inspire her to get to extraordinary living based on what she has. The word comes to instruct her to deploy her management skills based on what was in her control. Can I say a few thoughts here? The prophetic word has several elements. For this of management as a kingdom priority, I want to pick 4. The first element of this prophetic word was go and borrow vessels. You go and borrow vessels. As a matter of fact, it says, go borrow them everywhere. Go borrow them amongst your neighbors. Of course, we not exegesis, I won't go into details of the difference between those two. The second aspect of this prophetic word, borrow empty vessel. Borrow empty vessel. In other words, it's the vessels you need from your neighbors, not what is inside. You don't go Africa to borrow from the other world what's inside. Borrow the vessels. As a matter of fact, it's interesting here. It doesn't say go borrow jars, but go borrow vessels. So the prophetic word says, increase your expectation from jars to vessels. Then it says, not just a few, but borrow many. Then the prophetic word says, get inside your door, shut the door behind you, with your sons inside the house. Then the fifth aspect of the prophetic word, pour from the jug to the vessel. My goodness. Think about it, think about it, think about it. You've never seen this before. There's little oil in a jug. And the prophetic word says, you take from the jug, you pour into vessels, not one vessel, but vessels. And the prophetic word says, once it is full, you set it aside. You set the full ones aside. This version says, and as each is filled, put it to one side. It gives the impression that the oil will flow from the little jug and fill a vessel. And not only one, because the prophetic word says you'll push it aside when it is full. I'm focusing on the management aspect. Let's think about this. What are the management elements of this prophetic word? Number one, this woman would not experience the power of that prophetic word, would not experience the power of the abundance of our God if she was not able to manage that task. There was a task here. I call the task generation full oil vessels from one jar of oil. There was a task. There was a vision. There was a mission. If she had no management skills for the task, she would not come out of poverty. She would not experience the abundance of our King. Friends, it's not so much how much she went back to the house and prayed. It's not so much how well he went to the house and did all the religious gymnastics, but it's how well she went back and managed the vision and managed the mission and managed the work before. The mystery was in management ability. The second thing she had to manage a team. In her case, her team composed of 2 sons, in as far as the scriptures give us. There may have been other people, cousins, uncles, etc. She had to manage team. That management required, first of all, selling the vision to the team. Remember, they were not there with her when she received the prophetic word from the prophet. They were just hoping. She probably told them that, hey man, I'm going to meet your dad's former boss, the prophet. I'm going to speak to this guy. And she was, I didn't engage the whole conversation. She was hoping that she would say to the guy, look man, we are so poor. Not only are we poor, the creditor is coming to enforce the rule of enslaving our sons. We are moving from poverty to slavery. And she was hoping the man of God would say, oh man, your husband was so reverent. Now that you are likely to move from poverty to slavery, I'm going to now give you the money. And as Africa doesn't realize, when we go ask for the money, it actually takes us into the slavery that we're trying to run away from. The prophet doesn't give her money that would supposedly be reversing her poverty. Prophet gives her a management responsibility. The prophet speaks a word, and the word gives her a management responsibility. So she had to come back empty-handed, but word full. She had to come back and say, I have a word, even though I'm not carrying the money. She had to come back and say, I'm selling this vision, I'm selling this dream to you. And the vision, the dream is, we're going to generate full oil vessels from a small jug. My goodness, who's going to believe her? She's speaking to the sons and say, come on sons, they obviously are not young anymore, they are old because they are involved in the transaction. So in fact, the creditor would take them so that they go be slaves and work for the creditor. So they are not kids. They are old people. So she's got to manage the vision, selling it to somebody. She's got to manage their responsibility. She's got to give them tasks. There's tasks to look for empty vessels. There's tasks to bring them in the house. There's tasks to pour, move aside. So she had to manage them. The prophetic word has been spoken, but it must be fulfilled through management. The third thing she had to manage, if you're walking with my order, she had to manage relationship. You see, friends, it's one thing to sell the vision to his sons, their family. They are probably going to say, mom, something is going to beat up here, but still, because you are our mother, we're going to believe you. But man, you're not going to knock on the door of a stranger outside and say to them, go. And they say, what's wrong? You say, I have some vessels because I'm going to pour oil from a little jug. So the primary people that would give her the vessels are people with whom she had effective relationship. So she had to therefore manage relationships. Strangers would hardly believe such a story. But she also had to manage her own expectations. And I think that's important. Maybe I should have put that as page 1, as management element 1. The prophet does not say what he means by many vessels. The prophet doesn't define what many means. The prophet simply says, don't borrow a few, but borrow many. She then could have said, 1 big vessel is many to me, or 2 vessels is many, or 3 or 4. She had to manage her own inner world. What does many mean? What quantity would represent many. Friends, I need you to capture this. She's doing this before the oil begins to pour. After the oil was pouring, she could have said, now I know what's many. Go bring 1,000. Let me put it this way to you. Her responsibility was not to make prophetic word perform, but her responsibility was to manage the task, manage resources, manage responsibilities, manage relations, manage the team, manage her expectations. Let me put a statement here. God made the word to work when the manager worked. It goes back to where we were in Genesis 2. God allowed increase, progress, abundance only when there was a manager. The jug of oil was always in the house, but the jug of oil never grew. The jug of oil never increased until there was a prophetic word and then a manager to take the responsibility. I know that I'm teaching here. I'm not preaching and speaking prophetic words, but let me just say these words to you. Friends, we have a word of abundance. Christ said, I have come that they may have life and have it more. That's a prophetic word. That's a word of abundance. In other words, we already have the word. Now what is needed of us is management. And when the word finds a manager, then the word performs. That's why I insist management is a kingdom priority. Anybody who wants to experience the kingdom life has to pause a little bit from all the religious activities and think about the question, how am I doing? What are the things that are within my control, from which I can grow, from which I can have abundance, from which I can have an extraordinary life? What are the things that are within my control? How well is my management of those things? I strongly present it to you. When we excel in management, the word that has been spoken, whether it's the Logos or the Rhema word, when we excel in our management, that word will amaze us because it will perform. Think of the following in as far as this case study. The oil respected the prophetic word to the extent of her management ability. I love this one. You see, if I was preaching church, I would now be singing a song and the guys would be playing for me. Let me say it again. The oil continued to flow as long as there were empty vessels. The oil respected the prophetic word to the extent of her management abilities. People receive all kinds of prophetic word year after year, season after season. When these prophetic words come, people just expect that the prophetic word will be respected by their poverty in the absence of management. The poverty of this family responded to the prophetic word to the extent of her management. The greater her management ability, in terms of effective relationships, the more vessels she brings. The more vessels you would have in the house, the greater would be the miracle, and the greater would be the ordinary life. Let me say it again. Any limitation in her management determined the barrier within which the prophetic word was going to produce extraordinary life. This is amazing. I imagine that they had 100 vessels. They poured to the first one. And they were amazed. Ah! The vessel is full, but the jug is still full as well. Then they bring the second one. They pour. Ah! The vessel is full, and the jug is still full. They reach number 99 vessel. Now it begins to dawn to them. We should have had more. We should have had more. But the prophet says, you lock the door first. Once you lock the door, you can then begin the process. In other words, once you begin the process, you can't open the door to go get more vessels. Your management ability, your faith has determined how far you go. And the scripture says, I can even read this. Let's say, it says in verse 6, when all the vessels were full, she said to her son, bring me another one. But he replied, there is none left. And the oil stopped. At the level of her management, the miracle, growth, increase, abundance stopped. And I say to you, your business will grow as far as your management skills will take it. There's many people who want your skill. There's many people who want what you are providing. But your management ability will determine how many you will reach. Because when the vessels were full, the oil stopped. Well, to end this case study, she sold the oil. She paid off the creditors. And then, in other words, she averted slavery. Then the prophet says, you will live on the road. In other words, she had a business now, and her business was to sell oil. And she would live on the oil that she was selling. It was a partnership between the divine and human. Remember, management is a kingdom imperative. It is a priority in kingdom. Learn and practice management to experience extraordinary. Friends, you could argue with me and say this is controversial. I'm a religious guy. What? Look, I'm giving you a kingdom perspective here. Keep your religion with you. Here is a kingdom perspective. Management is a kingdom imperative. Learn and practice management. You will see growth in ways you've never seen. I want to do a second case study. Wow. I am so joyful that you have listened all the way to this point. Man, I celebrate your life, and I assure you the world will celebrate you and celebrate your greatness. It's been an absolute joy and pleasure for me to share with you through this episode that we have just listened. I look forward to connecting again with you in the future episodes next week and next week and next week. I am also glad and pleased to know that you are sharing these episodes, you are sharing extraordinary exploits with your friends and with other people, so that together we can create the culture of love, abundance, dominion with speed, so that we make the rest of our lives to be the best of our lives. I truly and truly love you. See you at the top when you join us next week again. Wherever you go, you are an open heaven. Make it count. You are heavenly accredited for extraordinary living. You are in open heavens, an era of divine favor. The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make the heavens release upon your life love, abundance, dominion with speed. Jehovah continue to preserve you, to protect you, to spare you, and to provide for you with your loved ones. Experience daily the goodness of the Lord, the benevolence of the Lord, and the beauty of His holiness. Let favor, victory, prosperity, wealth, progress, promotion be yours all the days of your life. Be filled with the wisdom of the Lord that brings along riches, honor, enduring wealth, and prosperity. Let sweetness and pleasure be yours all the days of your life. Have an extraordinary living so that the rest of your life be the best of your life.